So how was the Big Bang Theory last night, guys?
The who?
Did you enjoy watching that?
I've never seen that show from start to finish.
Seriously, never?
Never. One time.
I saw it when I was in Mexico.
I don't get the fascination with it, but I don't like to be an asshole. And when a show's really popular, be like, "That show sucks." Like, I got it. I'm missing it. It's just not for me. But I guess it must be good.
Also not for me, but I did enjoy watching that over the Super Bowl last night.
Ruben is friends with one of the women on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Kylie Kilkel?
I forget her name.
Is she the lead?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't watch the show.
Great conversation.
So, but it was like, what I understand about you is like, it was very clear that Steve was tapped out on information. Like, like that was it. He knew Dave Rubin was friends with one of them. If he'd known the girl, he would have said it. Like, he didn't know. You could ask a billion questions. I don't know either, but you could ask a.
Well, why are you interrupting me then? I'd like to proceed with questioning.
The 4th episode or the 7th?
I don't know.
I've only seen it twice. It's a fine show. Super Bowl 48 was abysmal for some. It was great for others, mainly Steve-O. Actually,
it wasn't great for me.
Actually, here. Let me just say this. Here's how, and we were talking about this off the air. Here's how we know that the Super Bowl was bad. We were taking bets on the over/under of who the 7th president of the United States of America was in the second half. Ben, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I lost $20 on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew, but I thought fewer people would.
I also knew.
Yeah. We went to Ricky, and Ricky was like, Jackson.
I know I said it way more confidently than that.
You said it less confidently.
No, I was like,
I knew as soon as Rick said that, I was like,
what's Jackson's first name?
Andrew.
I was like,
Come on.
lost this bet.
What state does he live in? Oh, what did he live in?
Mexico. All right, so a 43-8 win for the Seahawks. It all started out awful with Manny being Manny Ramirez throwing the ball over Peyton Manning's head. Jake made a point, and we could discuss this right now, that it was on Peyton Manning, but you disagreed with that.
I disagree. Well, Jank thinks Peyton Manning is an antichrist, and he blames him for the Holocaust and Obamacare and everything in between. So it's definitely
that's a lot.
Yeah, it's Peyton Manning during Benghazi.
Yeah. No, so Jank has no credibility on this issue. Jank's theory is that it's Manning's fault because when Manning snapped the ball, the whole team moved except for Manning, who was caught off guard, so it must be Manning's fault. But that's not right.
Also, the whole team moves. The wide receivers, everybody, those guys are all looking at the ball.
Yeah.
So I mean, they move it when it's snapped, and they can't look at Manning. I don't know whether Jake knows this, but he's behind everybody else.
Yeah, and Manning, that's what he does all the time. I mean, he goes up to the line of scrimmage, he barks orders to his linemen about blocking schemes. He points out defenders, and then he goes back to his position. But clearly, there was miscommunication.
Absolutely.
And at worst, it was 50% Manning's fault. At worst.
I mean, I don't know why it has to be somebody's fault. It was an obvious miscommunication, and it cost them. It turned out not to matter. It seemed to, if we talk about storylines for the game, it seemed to set a tone. But the tone was set by how the Seahawks played. I mean, if Manning had caught that snap and thrown an incomplete pass or completed a 4-yarder to Demaryius Thomas or Noshawn Moreno had gained 3 yards, final score of that game would have been 41-8.
Right? Yeah, Noshawn Moreno, by the way, free agent to be, so we'll talk about that in a second. The big plays, and look, we've talked about Mark Trestman and how you've called him gutless.
I mean, it's so foolish it defies defense.
Okay, so this was gutless in the third quarter when they were down 29 to nothing. The drive wasn't bad. The drive after the Percy Harvin kick return to make it 29-0. Which made it 29-0, yeah.
The Seahawks players were saying that they saw that right after that, on that drive of the Broncos, I read today that a bunch of Seahawks defenders were like, they'd quit. They were beaten then, and they knew they were beaten. Particularly so after 36-0. And so when the Seahawks, when the Broncos subsequently drove inside Seahawk territory,
they were at the 40. They were at the 40. First possession of the second half, they punted.
It was fourth down. In some, it wasn't 4th and 3.
Number 1 offense in the league. Yeah, historically great.
You're down 4 touchdowns. It's the Super Bowl.
Go for it.
You're in the third quarter. Like, you got to go. You need something just to. Also, it didn't recognize their emotional state. Like, there was no more. They weren't going to be any more let down emotionally by punting or throwing an incomplete pass. Like, losing the ball was their defeat at that point. They needed to keep the ball. There's just, to me, there's no question about it. I thought it was puzzling to punt then.
Here's what Tony McDaniel said. When we was up 29 points, just Manning's whole motion was kind of like he was dry. Just the whole team looked like they were giving up. And once we scored again, I knew it was over. So there you go. That speaks to the...
So he knew it was over when it was 36-0. Very bold, very, very bold. Yeah.
Not 29?
Yeah.
Yeah, understood. Yeah. So, I mean, I thought that was just, I thought it was gutless to punt on fourth down.
In defense of John Fox and the Broncos, it was over. It was over. So
it was, but
whatever.
But with 11 minutes left, if they can
over. They were going to mount anything. They had nothing going.
You're right, Steve. But of course, it was over. But like.
But you're right. They should try. They should try.
You can try because you never know. First of all, you throw deep, you get a pass interference penalty, you score. It's 29-7. You stop them once. It's 29-14 going into the fourth quarter. Like you're still like. You try.
Someone
you have a 1%
please.
chance, but you don't make yourself have a 0% chance.
I agree.
If they score somehow and make it 29-7 or 29-8, then at least you have some hope.
Right.
And when you have hope, you play a little bit harder. And that little difference makes all the difference in whether you get the first down, whether you make the catch, whether you break a tackle, and that could have cascading effects.
You saw what happened when they, their tackling was bad from the first drive on, but when they lost hope, they weren't. I mean, those receivers, You're
talking about the Jermaine Kearse touchdown?
I mean, Kearse doing, but that was a, oh my God, we're so beat.
Yeah.
We're already down 29-0. It's about to be 36-0. We can't stop anybody. This is horrible.
Peyton Manning, by the way, he went 34 of 49. We were also talking about this. That's a Super Bowl record for completions. 34 completions.
Records. Like 80% of records are bullshit.
Especially.
What are the 20 that aren't bullshit?
Well, percentage-wise. No, I mean, so there are real records like, the most rushing yards in the Super Bowl. That's a fine record. But here's what I don't like. Most rushing yards by
more than 10 yards
by a wide receiver. And I mean, who cares?
This is obviously
the
irrelevant.
most receptions by a running back in a Super Bowl. Like all these records, someone has to have them, but I don't really care.
Also, a couple things we know, like a quarterback who throws a lot of completions.
Are you going to put on that hat?
I was just keeping it as an option.
Okay.
A quarterback who throws, it's on my knee. That's where people wear hats, where I'm from. I don't know about
South Carolina.
Son. Yeah. But a quarterback who throws a lot of completions generally loses. Because it means you've thrown, again, you're throwing all the time and you're throwing short.
Yeah.
Like you throw for a lot of yards, you might well win because you tend to make, those are big plays, those are going to be touchdowns, you're going to score some points. So, Demaryius Thomas's record, meaningless, the most receptions.
13 catches.
13 catches, and Manning's completion record, that's silly. He only threw for 280 yards. You see what his quarterback rating was? Like we make fun of quarterback rating here, it's the dumbest stat in the world, but we at least now know what a bad one is.
He was bordering on Rex Grossman territory, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he set a record with the most completions. His quarterback rating was 25. So
25?
give you an idea of how, it was like 25.7 or 24.8.
So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, let's talk about how the Seahawks were able to dominate so much, and and how they shut down a #1 offense in the league. So look, here's my thing. I mean, Cenk in particular likes to blame Peyton Manning and say, oh, he choked and he.
We know.
He didn't choke. I mean, he just played badly. And that's mainly because Seattle played great.
Yes.
So Manning's whole offense, I mean, their entire offense is predicated on short, rhythmic passing routes where receivers catch the ball in stride. There's a 5-yard, 10-yard pass that they break off to me 15, 20, 30-yard passes. They dink and dunk the hell out of you, and then at some point they go over the top a little bit as you start to get closer and closer. They can never really do that. And in my book, Cam Chancellor was MVP.
I agree with you.
I thought he set the tone from the very beginning. That first hit on Demaryius Thomas when he came across the middle to the 5-yard catch.
Like a 2-yard gain, and he pushed him back 5 yards.
Blasted, just obliterated. And right there, the message is sent, hey, you are not going to get the yak on us, because Denver led the league on yards after catch. They had, and Seattle said no yak for you.
Nobody got, I thought the way the Seahawk defenders, I don't know that Denver had an offensive lineman or a wide receiver make a successful downfield block in the entire game.
I completely agree with you.
Every guy on that Seattle defense dismissed Denver blockers like, and then they'd make a play and they'd hit Demaryius Thomas and they'd knock him back, and then within a beat, 2 or 3 other guys were on the guy, and that was the end of the play. And that happened again. And the Davis winning the MVP, and what you've just said about Chancellor just shows you, like, that in this case, you shouldn't have been given the MVP to one person, because the Seattle defense won that game.
One thing Steve said, by the way, throughout the entire game is this Seahawks defense, LOB, refuses to be blocked.
Yeah,
and you saw it
blocked,
repeatedly. Those little dink and dunk screen passes that they usually have that get pulled off for 10 yards. Eric Decker couldn't hold a block. Demarius Thomas couldn't hold off a block. Julius Thomas couldn't hold a block.
Yeah.
None of them could.
There's a play in the first half. Denver designed it beautifully. So they got the ball to Demarius Thomas. There were 2 Denver blockers. And Barton Maxwell split the defenders. Submarine Thomas, and then he got gang tackled, and that I mean, I thought that play was gonna go for 15 yards minimum.
Yeah,
it went for 2.
It kept happening, man. They'd beat a block, and then there were 4 other guys there when there was then these plays were over, and that was.
And then a few plays later, Demarius Thomas on the right side of the screen, right side of the alignment, he got another bubble screen. And again, it looked like he had an easy first down. He did get it, but it was a struggle to get it.
Have you guys? Go ahead.
I think this was the most surprising Super Bowl ever. And I say that without having given a full look. So it's possible I'm wrong. But like in years where there were upsets, because first of all, remember, these guys were the underdog, and most of the blowouts that we had throughout the 80s, it was the blowout you saw coming. The Cowboys were better every year they won. The 49ers were better every year they won. The Redskins were better in the years that they won. But this, you know, the Redskins lost to the Raiders after the Redskins had a record-setting season in 1983. Most points in the league. They went 14-2. They lost 2 games by 1 point each. And then they annihilated the Rams in the playoffs. And then they struggled in the second half against the 49ers. They had a big lead, and the Niners caught them, and it was a sign that somebody may have figured something out about him. But that game that the Raiders won 38-9, Marcus Allen, great player, sets a Super Bowl record for rushing yards. And that game was weird. Weird things happened. The interception returned for a touchdown, a blocked punt that led to a touchdown. Like, it was one of those NFL games where you're like, that was just weird. This game was so surprisingly, overwhelmingly dominant that to me it made it actually very interesting. You know, yeah, it wasn't competitive. Nobody won it on the last play of the game. But the entire game, you were like, I can't believe these guys are doing this to them.